Hey there, my name is Ragnon, and this is my guide for Holy Priest in Mythic Plus for Season 3, Patch 10.2. Why play Priest? Priest brings the power word Fortitude raid buff. While considered mandatory for most raid groups, it also provides good benefit for dungeon groups. This buff gives everyone increased max health, giving extra wiggle room to survive mechanics and time to be healed. Priest brings several unique utility spells, including Mind Soothe, Mass Dispel, and Power Infusion. Mind Soothe allows your group to skip certain trash pulls, sometimes even allowing skips that would otherwise not be possible. Mass Dispel has been nerfed to a 2-minute cooldown, but is still a powerful effect, allowing for multiple magic effects to be removed. This is especially helpful for bursting weeks, allowing your group to pull larger amounts of trash than other healers might be able to handle. Priest also brings Power Infusion, an external haste buff that is coveted by nearly every DPS player. Although it has been nerfed going into this season, it still remains a big consideration for including a Priest in a group. Priest is also a versatile choice for a healer main, having 2 heal specs to choose from, allowing the player to switch between Holy and Disc based on tuning balance, or just to keep things interesting and fresh. Why play Holy? Holy is considered by many to be one of the most beginner-friendly healing specs in the game, fitting the reactive healer stereotype well. It has a fairly straightforward playstyle, reacting to incoming damage by refilling health bars with a variety of healing spells. Holy has strong spot heal potential, allowing the player to push up health bars on a single target very quickly, which is useful for many damage profiles in the current dungeon pool. Holy can also be quite mana efficient, which is helpful after Blizzard has implemented several mana nerfs to all healer specs going into this season. Disadvantages. It's important to understand a class's and spec's weaknesses, so you are prepared in advance for potential pain points to overcome. Priest is fairly slow, mostly in that it lacks displacement effects. Our only speed boost in our standard Mythic Plus build is Angelic Feather, giving us a short movement speed increase on a 30-second cooldown. While many players feel this isn't very strong, I personally love Feather, even over the movement cooldowns of many other classes. You typically only need a short burst of speed to reposition for a mechanic, and Angelic Feather provides this perfectly on a short cooldown, meaning that you have a speed boost just about every time you need it. Holy Priest can also be quite vulnerable, as they lack any true damage reduction defensive cooldown. Our defensive kit includes Desperate Prayer, Fade, and Guardian Spirit, which will be explained in more detail during the defensive section of the video. Stat priority. Item level is always king, and you should be equipping pieces with the highest item level when initially gearing. Beyond that, our stat priority in Mythic Plus is Haste, then Crit and Versatility, and then Mastery is our worst stat. Unfortunately, this is quite different than our raid stat priority, making it a little awkward initially when gearing. Fortunately, you can target stats fairly easily by changing between different rings and off pieces like belts and capes, which will go a long way towards targeting desired stats. Haste is our best stat, because faster casts allow us to respond to damage quickly. It does cause us to burn through our mana more quickly, but that typically isn't a problem in Mythic Plus because you can always drink between pulls. Holy is also binary in its healing and damage, meaning that you're doing one or the other, and higher levels of haste allow us to quickly switch back and forth. Crit increases the effectiveness of our spells, giving us more value per cast. Versatility is an all-around good stat in dungeons, as it's a flat damage increase, a healing increase, and it also provides us with damage reduction, something that's especially valuable for Holy Priest in hierarchies. Mastery is our worst stat, as it only benefits our healing and not our damage, and the heal over time is less valuable than in raid, due to dungeons requiring quick heals as an immediate response to help players survive, rather than the mana-efficient throughput spread over our long encounter like you'll find in raids, where you're also relying on a full healer team to support each other. Gear. Our tier set is pretty good this season and is worth getting as soon as you possibly can. Our 2-piece is somewhat unimpactful, causing our Serenity and Sanctify to apply renews to the affected targets. The true strength of our tier set comes from our 4-piece, which causes Renew's healing ticks to occasionally proc a buff that refunds a charge of Serenity or Sanctify when cast. This buff stacks up to 2 times and does not expire, allowing us to bank up additional Holy Word uses and have a much higher amount of Holy Words cast throughout a dungeon. The tier procs seem to have a hidden built-in cooldown, capping around 3 procs per minute, meaning that it isn't worth adding renew casts to our healing rotation. It would be procced enough from the passive renews applied by our talents and our 2-piece. Trinkets. We are fortunate this season to have multiple competitive trinkets for healers, many of which can be farmed from Mythic Plus. There are 2 different categories of trinkets, stat sticks and on use. Strong stat stick options include Pip's Friendship Badge from the Council Boss of Emirdrasil, Coagulated Venusaur Blood from Everbloom, and Sea Star from Throne of the Tides. Good on-use options include Smoldering Seedling from Laradar and Emirdrasil, Revitalizing Voodoo Totem from Ataldazar, and Echoing Tearstone from Dawn of the Infinites, Murazon's Rise, although this is much stronger in Raid than it is in Mythic Plus. The stat sticks will boost the effectiveness of your spells passively and don't require any extra thought, while each on-use trinket has a different purpose and benefit. Smoldering Seedling is a strong burst AoE heal that can help top off an entire party once every 2 minutes for the cost of 1 to 2 Serenities and maybe a flash heal or 2. As burst AoE healing can be a weak point for Holy and Keys, this helps plug that hole, and I've found it to be extremely useful. You'll probably find it easier to use by using the macro that I have linked in my UI spreadsheet that you can find in the description to cast and then target the seedling. After healing the seedling to full health, it receives and transfers healing to the rest of the party in a smart heal format on a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning that it really isn't worth healing it past full health unless you've used Guardian Spirit for the 60% healing increase. Voodoo Totem can be a strong external, providing one targeted party member with a crazy amount of single target healing over its duration, and can be helpful for single target healing profiles like Jagged Nettles in Waycrest Manor, Crushing Depths in Throne of the Tides, and the various poisons and bleeds in Darkheart Thicket. Echoing Tearstone is a strong trinket for Raid, but it can also be a nice safety net for Mythic Plus groups. It will record healing that you do for the next 10 seconds when activated, and then release that healing spread across the group the next time a party member drops below 35% health. This can have mixed results and can trigger at inopportune moments, especially if you have something like a Blood Death Knight that fluctuates dramatically with their health, causing the healing to be released when it's unneeded and result in overhealing. There may also be trinkets that are brought exclusively for damage output that emerge as the season goes on that are not included in this guide. I highly recommend frequently checking resources like subcreation.net to see how the meta evolves over the season. Talents. Due to our tier set revolving around holy words, our optimal choices for builds in Mythic Plus have been narrowed, with Miracle Worker and Divine Image builds becoming the clear choice. The extra Holy Word casts make Divine Image much stronger, as it will have a higher uptime and higher stacks of its effect. Miracle Worker is more important than ever, due to the tier set giving a Holy Word refund when cast, not a free cast of the ability. You cannot benefit from the tier set procs unless you already have a charge of that Holy Word available, making the extra charge granted by Miracle Worker make the spec play much more smoothly. Lightweaver and Divine Word builds have less synergy with our tier set, which should cause them to fall out of favor this season. Here is the talent build I would recommend for Holy and Keys. It starts with a strong, flexible baseline that works for all dungeons and most affix weeks without modifications. Binding Heals and Benevolence can be traded out for their alternate choices of Angel's Mercy and Power Word Life based on personal preference. On Afflicted weeks, I would recommend trading Benevolence for Power Word Life in order to easily handle both afflicted mobs by dispelling one and healing the other with Power Word Life. For Incorporeal weeks, I'd recommend dropping Light's Inspiration to bring Shackle Undead, allowing you to solo the affix by using Dominate Mind on one Incorporeal and Shackle Undead on the other. The build should work as it is for Entangling weeks, as Phantasm allows you to remove the snare by pressing Fade. Rotation and Playstyle. Holy relies on Holy Words to do the heavy lifting when healing the group. When played correctly, Holy can feel like it has strong tools to top off members of the group. When played incorrectly, it can feel like you're stuck with nothing but flash heal, causing you to run out of mana very quickly. Here's the priority list for healing that I use in Mythic Plus. Keep Prayer of Mending on cooldown. Use Holy Words as your first cast when possible to trigger Divine Image. Avoid overcapping on holy words unless there's an intentional reason that you're banking them up for. This includes both our natural charges and our tier set procs. Use Answered Prayers procs to regenerate holy words. Use Holy Nova when at 20 stacks of Rhapsody to hit as many party members and enemies as possible. Use Divine Star or Halo on cooldown whenever multiple targets need healing. And finally, use Flash Heal to respond to damage. Additional healing tips and details. It can't be overstated how important it is to keep Prayer of Mending on cooldown. Prayer of Mending has many benefits and is a vital part of our kit. Most importantly, Prayer of Mending bounces are what trigger our free Apotheosis procs every 50 bounces, which can net us lots of extra holy words over the course of a dungeon. Prayer of Mending also has a chance to leave a renew when bouncing to a new target, which synergizes well with our tier set. Prioritizing high uptime on Prayer of Mending can also be helpful when leading into difficult healing checks, as having lots of PoMs bouncing around can feel like you have another healer supporting you. It's important to prioritize your Answered Prayers procs. Miracle Worker builds rely heavily on using holy words as the workhorse of their healing, and Answered Prayers proccing Apotheosis is also one of the main ways that we make sure that we're able to churn out holy words frequently. There are a few weak auras that can help you track this, including one that I've modified and posted on wago.io that shows a bar and plays a chanting sound effect when you hit 45 stacks, giving you time to mentally prepare before it procs at 50 stacks. Spamming flash heals during these Answered Prayers procs is the key to success with the Miracle Worker build. If you don't capitalize on these windows, you will end up with far fewer holy words, leaving you sometimes stuck with nothing but flash heal, which is both mana inefficient and is oftentimes not enough to keep up with healing requirements. It's also worth mentioning that you want to avoid casting spells that don't give you CDR on your holy words during these proc windows, such as Divine Star and Halo. These proc windows are short, and every global counts. There is some optimization that can be done with our tier set. Our 4-piece procs based on our Renew's healing ticks, and it can stack up to 2 times, and does not expire. Tier procs can be spent on either Sanctify or Serenity. I have a weak aura linked in the description that tracks these procs. It will glow and play a ka-ching sound effect when hitting the 2 charge cap. You'll find that you have many more holy words available than before once you get your full tier set, so spend them freely and avoid overcapping on both your natural charges as well as your tier set procs. Divine Image has much more optimization potential than some people give it credit. While you can just play normally and get good value out of it, having a deeper understanding of how it works can be very helpful. Divine Image is summoned every time that you cast one of your 3 holy words and lasts for 10 seconds. While active, it will duplicate your spell casts with a similarly functioning ability of its own. Multiple casts of holy words do not extend the Divine Image. Instead, it applies an additional layer of the effect. For example, if you were to cast Serenity, you would spawn a Divine Image for 10 seconds. If you were to cast another Serenity about 2 seconds later, your Divine Image would have double effectiveness for 8 seconds until your initial cast fades, followed by 2 seconds of a single effectiveness Divine Image lingering from your second cast. It's worthwhile to prioritize casting a holy word as your first cast for both healing and dealing damage, allowing your other spells for the next 10 seconds to have increased effects. This also means that you don't need to avoid using back-to-back casts of holy words, but it can be beneficial to track the duration of Divine Image in order to fit high-value spells within that window. For example, if I were to cast Chastise, Serenity, and then Sanctify, it would be a good idea to cast Divine Star and maybe a fully stacked Holy Nova quickly, in order to benefit from the full 3 stacks of Divine Image before they start to dissipate. Damage rotation. Healer damage is not as high of a priority as it historically has been in some seasons, but it is a very important improvement point for players looking to push higher and higher keys. Holy is very binary with its healing and damage, and can only do one at a time for the most part, especially when compared to specs like Discipline and Mistweaver, which can always have some amount of damage output passively built into their healing. Holy can actually squeeze out some impressive amounts of damage when given time to cast. The challenge is just to squeeze it in between moments of healing, which can be difficult during encounters with high damage intake. Fortunately, Holy has some high damage abilities that are either instant cast or require a few globals. I personally find the challenge of fitting in as much damage as I can with Holy Priest very fun, and enjoy pushing myself from key to key to do more and more damage. Here's the DPS rotation that I use in Mythic Plus. Cast Shadow Word Pain on as many targets as possible while the tank is rounding things up, fading if necessary to prevent threat. Shadow Word Pain has a low priority beyond the initial pull for trash, as you have much more valuable globals to press. Preface damage casting windows with Chastise, or another holy word if you want to be greedy and damage intake is light, in order to summon Divine Image. Use Divine Star and Holy Nova at 16 to 20 Rhapsody stacks early in the pull in order to possibly get second casts before the pack dies. Cast Holy Fire on cooldown, preferably on the highest health target. Cast Imperial Blaze, then either apply all of the Holy Fire casts on a high health priority target or spread it on multiple targets if mobs would die before the dot would expire. If all previous steps have been completed, spam Holy Nova in big AoE pulls or Smite in single target to medium sized pulls. Apotheosis. Holy has a fairly cohesive healing toolkit without Apotheosis, meaning that if you're anything like me, Apotheosis can often be forgotten about, especially since we get frequent procs of Apotheosis through answered prayers. However, Apotheosis is a very strong healing cooldown, greatly increasing the cooldown reduction and decreasing the mana cost of your holy words. Here are ways that I typically use Apotheosis. Save it intentionally for moments and boss encounters that require a great amount of healing throughput. Use it in a pinch to immediately reset a charge of each of your holy words, then use the Apotheosis window to spam casts so that you end the Apotheosis window with as many holy words available as possible. Use Apotheosis as a damage cooldown if you don't feel like you need it for healing within the next 2 minutes, using Holy Fire and Smite casts to recharge Chastise, and using Chastise on cooldown for its damage and spawning Divine Image. Divine Hymn. Divine Hymn can be a little underwhelming for a 3-minute cooldown in a 5-man environment, but it's a strong choice for a 1 talent node and can have some nice uses. The heal from Divine Hymn is actually a little weak for the time investment to channel it, not to mention the danger of being stationary for that long. Sometimes the incoming group-wide damage is greater than Divine Hymn is actually healing for, causing you to need to cancel it to cast other spells. A nice use that I've found for Divine Hymn is to use it just before a big damage event in order to benefit from the healing amp, making other healing spells much more effective. Something else to keep in mind is that Divine Hymn works even when you don't have line of sight of your party, which may have some use cases as meta strategies evolve over the course of the season. Defensives. Our defensive kit includes Desperate Prayer, Fade, and Guardian Spirit. Desperate Prayer increases our maximum health temporarily and heals us for that amount of health granted. While this doesn't reduce incoming damage, this is actually a surprisingly strong tool for surviving mechanics, as it gives the player near tank levels of health and allows them to survive big hits from a mechanic that might kill other players. Fade, due to our talents, gives us a 10% damage reduction. This is quite a small amount of damage reduction, but it's available on a very short 20 to 30 second cooldown, meaning that we have a good amount of uptime on it. Guardian Spirit is an external, granting the targeted player a cheat death and increases their healing taken by 60%. This is a 3-minute cooldown by default, but is reduced to a 1-minute cooldown as long as the cheat death effect isn't procced, due to our Guardian Angel talent. Use Guardian Spirit liberally, as it's available for pretty much every pull with its short cooldown. Some uses for it are to give the tank extra safety during big pulls, to protect a party member while you focus on healing other people, or you can even throw it on somebody that you don't want to take the time to heal temporarily while you finish casting your damage spells. One more defensive tool that's worth mentioning is our talent, Protective Light, which gives us 10% damage reduction when either heal or flash heal is cast on ourselves. This will automatically proc on you when flash heal is cast on a different target, due to the Binding Heals talent. This, combined with Fade, can net you a 20% total damage reduction very frequently, which is nothing to scoff at. A final defensive tool that's easily underestimated is tertiary stats, both Leech and Avoidance. We passively get 5% Leech as priests due to our talent Sanguine Teachings, in addition to whatever we can get on our gear. Leech is helpful in Mythic Plus, but is extremely helpful for Holy Priest and Raid specifically, as it also applies to our Echo of Light healing, meaning that you have constant incoming healing from every small bit of healing that you do to the raid. Avoidance is usually the more valuable tertiary in Mythic Plus, as it allows you to better survive mechanics with AoE damage that become fatal at higher key levels. And that's going to do it for this video guide. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, as it helps me out a lot and helps others find the video too. You can find links in the description to my community Discord, as well as my Twitch channel, where I stream our raid nights every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 PM to 12 AM Mountain Time, as well as doing occasional Mythic Plus streams on other nights during that same time frame. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.